Hey all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club. Today we're going to talk about Lindsay Gibson's Recovering from Emotionally Immature Parents. Last time we talked about this subject, we went about halfway into chapter 2. And today we'll go ahead and finish the exercises and cover the really high points. Please do check out our website. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. There you can fill out our free life balance questionnaire and send it to us. And you can also just fill out a contact form and we'll be in touch. Your first consult is always free. Also, please do like and subscribe. It really does help us little YouTubers and helps the YouTube algorithm figure out what videos to pop up next. So if you're seeing too much of me, I do apologize. I won't take it personally if you unsubscribe, but if you could subscribe, it would really help and I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm gonna scooch back up a little. Okay. Okay. I hope y'all have been having a good week. I'm exhausted. This back to school time is really something. And then I decided to apply for a master's degree program. I went on vacation and decided to apply for a master's. And then I came back and I was like, I am never taking action on vacation brain ideas again until I come back to my job full time for at least a week and I can, think on it. While I don't regret it, I'm super excited. It's actually a master's in clinical psychology, so I'll have an LPC to add to my title in addition to certified life coach. But it's just a lot. And so my first final paper is due this week, which is also the week before school starts for my daughter. And then, of course, working full time and all that. So I'm just like, just trying to deal. But I'm sure you guys are on the same boat too. I don't know, for those of you that are overseas, when does school start? Do y'all have year-round school? How does that work? I'd be curious to know. I know I have some friends here in the UK and some in Australia. So, okay, Chapter 2, Understanding Emotionally Immature Parents, Their Personality Traits and Emotional Takeovers. So last time we covered an exercise as well as some of the high points. Today we will start, if I can find it, we will start with the rest of Chapter 2. Sorry, y'all. Thanks for being patient with me. I could probably pause. Okay, EIPs, Emotional Coercions and Takeover Tactic. Emotional coercion occurs when an EIP controls you by inducing fear, guilt, shame, and self-doubt. I know it's popular to say that nobody can make you feel anything, but for most of us, that simply isn't true. In fact, EIPs are masters at getting you to feel things that are to their advantage. Children can certainly be made to feel things by powerful adults upon whom they are dependent. And the same goes for us in adulthood whenever there is a power imbalance between people. The achievable goal is not to pretend that you're immune to their influence, but to catch it early and quickly separate yourself from their attempted domination. Ultimately, as you become skilled at spotting and refusing emotional takeovers, you may no longer be vulnerable to anyone's attempts to make you feel anything. But in the meantime, let's work on getting free from emotional coercions when they occur. Next, we will look at how EIPs arouse toxic feelings that make you willing to give in and let them take you over. Self-doubt undermines your autonomy and self-worth. Fear makes you easier to control. You inhibit yourself, and you often feel guilty. You have guilt for not self-sacrificing. EI parents often ask for more than you can give, but if you ever say no, they act like you don't really love them. As an adult child of EI parents, it can feel like the only way to be a good person is to sacrifice yourself. Survivor guilt. Sometimes adult children feel guilty around their EI parents simply because of how much better their lives are going. Survivor guilt, feeling guilty for your own good fortune compared to others, can arise if you have EI parents who are not functioning well. EI parents often have multiple problems, both in their work and in their personal relationships. EI parents who stir up survivor guilt might be depressed, mentally ill, addicted, or functioning poorly in adult life. If you have created a life that is happier than theirs, you may actually feel guilty for your success. Guilt is a conscious feeling that is easily put into words. You can talk about why you feel guilty, citing reasons and describing feelings. Because guilt is familiar and easy to express, sometimes we think we are feeling guilt when we are really experiencing shame. Feelings of shame make you easy to dominate. Shame comes from feeling rejected by other people. You may have shame for having needs. The annihilating sensation of shame. Patricia DeYoung describes how devastating it can feel when someone refuses to connect with us at the moment of our greatest emotional need. It's unbearably shaming to have one's pleas for comfort or connection rejected. When a child's efforts to engage a parent fail, the child can feel hopeless, like they are all alone in the world. DeYoung explains that when children feel like they don't matter, their fragile personality structure feels like it's disintegrating, an experience that feels like dying. No wonder that being unresponded to can feel like the end of the world. So personally, I can relate to this and the feeling of being unresponded to. There's a reason why sending people, like banishing people from a community, is one of the worst punishments, or solitary confinement. So just like even worse than someone being mean is just a non-response. It's very, very hurtful. We don't recognize shame as a feeling. Fear of shame controls us long past childhood because we haven't been taught that it's just an emotion. We don't realize we were treated badly, and instead we think the sensation of shame is a fact of our badness. As one client said in a moment of insight, "I believe I'm worthless because I feel that way." Shame feels like reality because it's such a compelling emotional experience. However, if parents help their children recognize and label shame as just another feeling, they won't end up with such sweeping self-condemnation. However, EI parents have so much buried shame themselves, they can't help their children understand it. Exercise. Rescue your shamed and fearful self. Shame and feelings of worthlessness are rooted in fears of not mattering and being abandoned. To combat feelings of shame, Jerry Duvinsky recommends loosening their grip on you by writing down your fears of shaming and exposing them exactly as they are. My own method is to ask worried or anxious clients to write down the most embarrassing things they could imagine happening. Once you identify what kind of shaming you fear most, push the dread up another notch by asking yourself, and then what? Until you know you have reached the absolute worst possible outcome of your feared shame. Then, just sit with it for a few moments and notice that nothing bad happens. It's just a feeling. Next, spell out the awful story about yourself that accompanies this shamed state. What is your self-image that goes with the shame? Instead of agreeing that this would be the end of the world, you can feel compassion for how you've been made to feel. Can you feel compassion for how you've been made to feel so terrible about yourself? Now imagine rescuing this shamed inner self and giving it the comfort and acceptance that it needs to feel good about itself again. Subtle shaming between peers and adults. Subtle shaming is frequently used to exert social dominance. These social behaviors can be extremely subtle, such as not responding to your overtures, dismissing your concerns, or implying that you are a bother. These subtle shaming behaviors by another person are often hard to pinpoint because they're not dramatically demeaning or rude. You might think about these incidents for a long time afterward, but can't quite put your finger on why you feel so bad. However, once you see subtle shaming for what it is, you will feel better at once. You will see what's happening and stop feeding the EIP's self esteem by agreeing to feel inferior. So she has another exercise here. I'm going to skip it, or I won't skip it, but I'm going to do it in the next video because I do want to keep it to one video or one exercise at a time. And there are quite a bit of exercises in the book, but let me just talk. So we're talking about emotional coercions and takeover tactics. So ultimately, it's self-doubt, which undermines your autonomy and self-worth. Fear, then you start inhibiting yourself because you don't want any of these negative consequences. Guilt, and ultimately shame. So let's go back into the exercise of rescuing your shamed and fearful self. And for many of us, this is so ingrained. It's like she said, we don't recognize it as a feeling. It's hard to pinpoint. There have been experiences that I've had where I can tell that someone is operating out of shame, but I don't think they can. And so this may be something that you want to work with a therapist, or if you want to call us, if you have lots of issues and you want to talk through your shame, a trusted friend or partner who can maybe give you more objective advice. Do remember the ultimate rule of thumb that Gottman taught us: don't ever give unsolicited advice. So like if someone's coming to you to ask about something sensitive, don't be like, oh yeah, you're totally like that, you're terrible. But if they come to you and so if they're just talking about a life situation, you don't necessarily want to give your advice. But if they're asking you for advice, it's because they want it. So then you can give them advice, and ultimately, oftentimes we can see each other better than we can see ourselves, which is why it's so easy to criticize somebody else and not as easy to focus on yourself and work on self-improvement. But shame it's really limiting, and it really does prevent us from being our true selves. And our mission as life coaches is to help you find your best self, but help you be your best self. And so while you operate out of a place of shame, that's really not possible. And so if you have shame, but it's the type where like you really did something wrong and you're ashamed of it, there's a way out of that too. And that really involves your own accountability, making amends with the people that you hurt, even if they don't accept your apology, apologizing, understanding that you did wrong, and making a solemn promise to yourself and to others to do better. And then not just saying it, but actually doing it. So there's a way out of shame if it's real, if it's legitimate, and there's a cause for your shame. And there's a way out of shame if it was pushed on you, like what Gibson's talking about. So either way, I mean, shame is a very powerful limiting emotion, and in most cases, it's not good. And you can't just shrug it off. You can't just decide one day to not have the shame. You really need to work through it. So if you don't have a therapist and you do have health insurance, I recommend that you reach out and get yourself a therapist. There's some great online platforms that you can use. So it's therapy from the palm of your hand. You can always call us for a free consult. Penny does have excellent rates. I don't know if you've ever looked up life coaching before, but it's quite pricey. But yeah, or you can just use these videos, like I always say, if this is the only way that I ever communicate with you, I'm perfectly fine with that too. So despite all this blabbing, let's go through and one more time do this exercise. Just in case, like I mentioned, you need to have your journal. Doesn't always sink in, or you don't always feel comfortable doing it the first time. Please do pause the video, grab your journal if you didn't grab it before, and as you need, pause the video and do this exercise, okay? Rescue your shamed and fearful self. Shame and feelings of worthlessness are rooted in fears of not mattering and being abandoned. To combat feelings of shame, Jerry Duvinsky recommends loosening their grip on you by writing down your fears of shaming and exposing them exactly as they are. My own method is to ask worried or anxious clients to write down the most embarrassing things they could imagine happening. Once you identify what kind of shaming you fear most, push the dread up another notch by asking yourself, and then what? Until you know you have reached the absolute worst possible outcome of your feared shame. Then just sit with it for a few moments and notice that nothing bad happens. It's just a feeling. Next, spell out the awful story about yourself that accompanies this shamed state. What is your self-image that goes with the shame? Instead of agreeing that this would be the end of the world, you can feel compassion for how you've been made to feel. Can you feel, I did it again. Can you feel compassion for how you've been made to feel so terrible about yourself? Now imagine rescuing this shamed inner self and giving it the comfort and acceptance that it needs to feel good about itself again. So the only thing I'd say here is that this exercise assumes that you have nothing to be ashamed about, and that's not always the case. Everybody's done stuff in their life that they're ashamed of, and they have full right to feel ashamed of. And so that's where I would say there's a few steps more, and you can go deeper, and you can apologize to the people that you've hurt. And that is really the first step of getting rid of your shame, is even acknowledging that you did something wrong. So all right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for spending time with me here. Have a wonderful evening. If you're getting ready for school stuff, good luck to you. Here in Texas, there's a fight going on between, so the city of San Antonio, where I live, just issued, I forgot what it exactly is called, but anyway, they passed a mask mandate. So now all the kids and the teachers at school have to wear a mask, which I'm happy about because I'm very nervous. My daughter is too young to get the vaccine and I'm scared of her getting sick. So I'm happy that people will be taking precautions, but that's in defiance of the governor of the state of Texas. So then there's going to be a huge fight between the city and the state government. And it's just, I hope you guys are being careful with the virus. I hope you haven't lost loved ones to the virus. It really isn't a joke. Some of my relatives actually work in the ICU and have to deal with the aftermath of the virus day in, day out. And they're tired. They're really, really tired. And the worst part is, and I know this is, I'm sorry, totally separate topic, but the people who are dying in the hospitals right now are the unvaccinated. And some people can't get vaccinated, like immunocompromised people. So there's people who can't, even though they would like to. And if you're choosing not to, you're being selfish. And it's not only because you're damaging yourself, it's because if you allow the virus to continue to infect people when you could have prevented it, that will allow the next variant after Delta and the next variant after that. So vaccinating yourself isn't just for you, it's for the people around you, for the children. Nobody under 12 can get vaccinated. So I'm not trying to go on a soapbox, I apologize, but I do feel very strongly about this. The science is it's solid. There are side effects which are minimal, and there are side effects to every vaccine which are minimal. But please make the right choice. If you're watching this, I hope that you believe in research and science, and that you'll take common sense measures, but mask up when you go out, protect yourself, and get the vaccine to help others around you. Sorry, skip this video if this is too much for you, but it's too much right now. I think we're at 600,000 people dead this year in the United States, and it was 400,000 all of last year, and that's with the vaccine. So please go get vaccinated. All right, have a nice evening, y'all. Take care.